This is Laura DeFranco, holistic physical therapist and owner of Brave Healer Productions. I'm excited to bring you my new holistic healing series where you're going to learn from the experts what it means to live fiercely alive, mind, body, and soul. I invite you now to take a breath, relax, and feel the vibe of the words my guest has to share with you today. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we have a very special episode for you. Some collaborative badassery from 4 of the expert authors of The Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing, Volume 4. Oh my gosh, you guys. So I woke up one day in March of 2020 from a dream about helping the world heal at home with real, powerful, practical tools you can practice from the pages of these books that we've been creating. And when Volume 1 was born, I did not realize that we would all be sitting here right now, almost a year later, talking about Volume 4. The journey has been incredible. And I am so honored to be sharing the stories and the messages of these world-changing business owners who are in front of you today. So please let me introduce to you some of the authors of The Ultimate Guide. Hi, ladies. Thank you for being here today.
Hi. Hi. Hello.
So happy to have you. First, please let me say thank you to all of you for saying yes to this. And I really think it is about time that the healers of the world had a bigger voice. I'm so grateful for your courage to tell your authentic stories and to share your powerful tools. You are all amazing. I have Karin Yearwood with me, chapter 12. Ditch the dysfunction, using personal astrology to find your true power. Karin is an intuitive guidance counselor who specializes in life path astrology readings, divination. Did I get that word right? I hope so.
Yes.
And hypnosis. She guides divine leaders on their journey of self-healing, self-discovery, and visioning after adverse experiences. Karin has a gift of helping individuals evolve through their own spiritual awakening and transformation. I also have Laura Buckley with me. She's chapter 8, Habits That Heal. Tap into your personal energy to create changes that last. Laura has a vision of a world in which people can live freely, fully, and authentically in the body they were born into. She helps people move away from prescribed norms and ideals around health and move toward a definition of well-being that feels true and attainable for the individual. We also have Mandy Morris. She wrote chapter 15, Tapping into Your Identity, Breaking the Shame Cycle for True Emotional Freedom. Mandy is a therapist, EMDR clinician, speaker, author, and mental health expert. As co-owner of Mosaic Counseling Group, Mandy integrates evidence-based approaches, positive psychology, neuroscience, and art into her work. Her gifts of empathy and compassion guides her clients through healing. Her area of expertise includes recovering from trauma, detecting, protecting, and healing from toxic relationships, divorce, and anxiety disorders. Lastly, we have Lynda Carpenter with us, and she wrote chapter 2. Been trying to figure out how to announce this chapter for you guys in the proper way because it has a line, a blank space, and it's, oh, you guys fill in the blank. I have cancer. Now what? The mindset you need. All right. So people have been telling Lynda Carpenter that she should write a book for years. Lynda had stage 4 metastatic, supposedly terminal cancer and reversed it holistically without conventional chemotherapy or radiation. She describes the experience as having shaken hands with the Grim Reaper and walked away better for the introduction. So if you guys can't already feel the power in these people I have with me, I'm not sure what's going to do it. Oh my gosh. Karin, I'm starting with you.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your story and about this amazing chapter that you wrote.
Yeah. So I really started my awakening, healing journey, whatever, anyone wants to call it, when I was around 29, 30 years old. And I really struggled with finding the best tools and practices that would catapult me further into knowing more about myself, more about my family of origin outside of just the human experience, like a deeper meaning for everything. And so after studying different things, really getting into meditation and, self-care practices, I decided to study astrology and, begin studying astrology. And I know that you really can blend science with spirituality with astrology. And I know that it also supports the idea or the notion of being developmental in your healing. And coming from a disordered family where there's this thing of perfectionism, you have to do everything perfectly, and you oftentimes are compared to other people. It's really comforting, and you find solace in knowing that, you can do something and not do it perfectly. And I think astrology really allows that, and as well as divination, because it's a lot of your intuition. So you're honing a lot of the gifts and talents that are divinely given to you versus what was kind of programmed into you as a human being from birth to around 6 or 7 years old.
I resonate with being a recovering perfectionist, good girl. Anyone? So astrology, your chapter is interesting to me, and how you pull in this particular tool. What do you do with somebody first off to introduce them to astrology in general? What would you say to someone who's never used that tool before?
Well, I would start with something that's really commonly known, like your zodiac sign. Most people know the zodiac they're born under. They know the traits, things like that. So I would kind of start there, but then take it a step further and say, there's a couple of other dominant aspects to who you are as well. And, briefly explain it that way. I also would talk about moon cycles, because that's also very broad as well. Obviously, we can apply moon cycles to our own astrology, our own natal chart, the astrology birth chart. But just kind of broadly knowing, like a full moon is like releasing, right? New moons are about setting intentions, something that's kind of just broad that they could use in any way, even if it's not, recovering from something adverse, even if it's something that they just want to do to, increase awareness or to, bring about a sense of, harmony in their home, something where they can, just start kind of basic, and it's not like too scientific.
I love that. And I'm remembering when somebody helped me understand, what to do on the full moon, what to do on the new moon. Yeah. And even for myself, from like a journaling aspect, because that's how I always felt with the moon. The moon has been one of my favorite things in life. I don't know. I just love looking at it, and it inspires me. It inspires poems a lot of the time. But when someone like you, they were just saying, okay, now is the time to journal, sure, but then use it as a releasing, right? And what are some of the things? So talk to me more about that.
Okay, well, this is where it can get a little bit more specific. So like I said, everyone knows their sun sign, their zodiac sign. Like I'm an Aquarius, right? But you also have a moon sign, and you also have your ascendant sign. So if you wanted to follow the moon cycles, you could look at your natal chart. If you know the time you were born, obviously the date and place, and it will show you what zodiac sign your moon is placed in. Sometimes it's in the same sign as your sun, but I'm a Leo moon. So I could think to myself, all right, what are the characteristics of Leo? What does Leo need to feel motivated and comforted? And you can really do things, activities, and even like answer journaling prompts that would speak to the energies of Leo, which is a fire sign. And it's ruled by the sun, right? Which is opposite to the moon. Okay. So what things will really bring you warmth and comfort and make you feel like center stage? That's kind of Leo energy. It really likes to be in the spotlights, like the trend center of the zodiac. So bringing in maybe parts of yourself that you don't feel as confident, or what would a Leo do to feel confident in that area? And yeah, that kind of thing. Also, you have your house placement. So there's 12 houses. Each house represents a facet of life. You could incorporate where your moon is placed, what house it's placed in. So mine is in the 4th house. That's the house of family of origin, and your sense of community and kinship, like how you feel at home, literally. So what could you do in your home space during a full moon? Like, are there things that could you declutter? Could you maybe add some plants to the home? And, and it'll just differ again, depending on that zodiac sign that your moon is in, and also the house placement. And then also what moon cycle, is it a new moon or a full moon? So that's how it gets a little bit more detailed and specific.
I love it. You guys can tell that there's a lot to learn there, right? I love these tools, you guys. Laura Buckley, I'm going to move to you. You wrote about habits that heal. Talk to me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And I loved Karin. I'm a Leo, so I'm like, yeah, the Leo fire energy. This is my moon sign. I want to get it all in on it. So it's just really been lovely to even just hear your all's intros as well. So I'm Laura Buckley. I think I totally left it out of my bio that I'm a registered dietitian and an intuitive life coach. And so I practiced very clinically when I first became a dietitian, and I followed some of the standard practice of what you might see from a dietitian with meal planning and just a very traditional approach. And it always felt fairly disconnected and out of alignment for me. And so I transitioned careers and I went into coaching because I wasn't having the impact that I thought I could have as a dietitian when I initially entered the field. And when I got into coaching, it just became so apparent to me how powerful the work becomes when we engage people from their heart and their mind. And when we can really integrate the mind and the body connection, and we can teach people how to tap into their own energy to figure out what's really going to serve them the best. The results aren't just better, the energy is higher, the motivation to do it is higher, the inspiration and what's possible, it just expands in such a beautiful way. So after a handful of years in coaching, I brought it all back into the well-being space. And so my private practice is focused on a philosophy I call body partnership. And it's about helping people really be at home in their own body to identify what I call them health promoting behaviors or health supporting behaviors will really truly feel supportive and expansive and promote a sense of well-being that they desire.
You know, you do one thing that I think is so important in this particular field. You teach people to know what's good for them in this, when we think about like what to eat and oh my gosh, right? We could go on and on about that situation in terms of what we're nourishing ourselves with, but there's so much advice and so much of, you got to do this. No, you got to do this. No, you should really do this. And if you're not trusting your own self and not using that kind of body awareness, you could feel really overwhelmed and lost. What else do you want to say about that? It's just like such an important topic to me.
Yeah, it's such an important topic. And I think because there is advice everywhere, and listen, I could go on about this, so I'm going to try to keep it a little bit, not go all the way in the rabbit hole. But one of the things that we find is all of the advice is often pointing toward weight loss. You need to do this to lose weight. You need to do this to change your body. And that's just not the truth. And so we are often chasing something that isn't even really what's going to create the end goal. So in my chapter, the first part of the tool is actually really to tune into your own goals, into your own sense of well-being and your own definition of health, so that when we make changes, we're doing it in pursuit of something that truly supports our health. And one of the things that we find with advice, and listen, I gave all the advice for probably the first 7 years of my career, so I get it, right? But the thing is, when we advise, we actually disconnect from the other person, because we're moving into the space of, I know what's best for you, as opposed to saying, how can I help you know what's best for you? Because the truth is, I don't know what's best for you. I know how to help you identify what's really going to create the well-being. And the more we look to external advice, the more we actually disconnect from ourselves as well, because it's saying, I don't trust myself enough to know, so I need to go ask somebody else, or I need to go to the Googles, or I need to do something. And so while I do believe in Western medicine, this isn't saying don't do those things. It's also about, how do I connect and listen and trust myself as I pursue my well-being.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you for that. So important. Y'all are teaching awareness tools, right? We could talk about this whole book like that we're all teaching awareness from a different perspective. And that connection that Laura's talking about is so important. I always think like the most powerful advice, if, you know, whatever, if you want to talk about it like that, is actually just living and then sharing what's been really great for you, just kind of being a model for what's possible. And that could be one way for people, right? So sharing this, sharing you guys, your stories, your tools, and then sharing so many of them to give people lots of different options. It's really important for people to understand what's possible with this. Mandy, talk to me about your journey. How'd you get to doing what you're doing today? Tell me about this beautiful chapter you wrote.
Yeah, so I've wanted to write a book on my story for so long, and then when Jen told me about you and what you were doing with the chapter, I was like, oh, this would be a good intro for me. But so my story really started off as an early on therapist. I was probably only 2 or 3 years into being a therapist, and I'm doing all the training, and I'm, showing people the cycle of abuse, and I'm showing people this and that, and then come to find that I'm coming home to that myself. And I was in a marriage that was really going downhill. And, long story short, I go into details about it in my chapter, but it turned out that he ended up getting diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, and he was high up on all the criteria for a narcissistic personality disorder. And so it was very verbally and emotionally abusive. And I remember sitting in my therapist's office as a therapist, and him showing me the same handout I showed to my clients and being like, oh my God, but when you're in it, it is so hard to see sometimes, and just living in survival mode for so long. And so, I was lucky to have a lot of support and to move through that. And ultimately, he was not going to be healing. And so I was not going to be healing with him, and ended up getting a divorce. And since then, been doing a lot of my own healing work for myself. And I discovered EMDR therapy, and it's a evidence-based trauma therapy that is just phenomenal. And so from that, I got trained in it myself. I'm a very big believer in that even if you get a diagnosis like PTSD, that you don't have to stay diagnosed as that healing is possible for the brain. And Laura Buckley, when you were talking about that really going inside and the person knowing what they need to heal themselves, with EMDR is very focused on that, because it's guided work where we incorporate these techniques that it's all inward. Your brain literally wants to heal itself, and given the right environment and the right tools, it will do that. And so I talk a lot about, so part of the nature of trauma is you form a negative belief about yourself. Like, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm not safe, I can't protect myself, whatever it is. And when we don't go back and heal those beliefs, they just repeat in other experiences. Oh, here's another reason why I'm not good enough, another reason I can't protect myself. But when we work through the trauma and using this EMDR tool I put in there, you're really able to break free of holding on to those negative beliefs that aren't true, but feel true. And so I help people align the mind-body connection in that sense for their healing.
I love that. I also just appreciate that you were able to share your story in the way that you did. It's hard to share a story, and gosh, whose stories don't involve other people in our lives. But it's hard to share a story that involves somebody else. So when you're afraid to share it, the pieces that are your story. So I just wanted to tell you that I appreciate how you did that in yours. Thank you for that. Lynda, talk to me about your journey and this amazing chapter that you wrote.
Okay. I'm actually going back to EMDR because I've got some great comments about EMDR as well. I'll get to that in a moment. As you said, Laura, I had stage 4 metastatic, supposedly terminal cancer. To put it into perspective, it started out in the breast. It went to the bone in 3 places. When it got to the intestines, my oncologist signed papers saying that I was terminal. The death benefit on my life insurance policy paid in 2011. And yes, I loved spending that money. I'm completely clear as of 2016. I did it all holistically. I never did conventional chemotherapy and radiation. And now my focus is on helping other people either prevent, my preference is prevent a nasty diagnosis or reverse it when it's already there.
Yeah, this is powerful stuff. I wanted to say thank you to all of you who you're master teachers and you're teaching people your tools every day, and to take on the challenge of writing it in a book in a way that people get the practical takeaway from it that takes something. So thank you all for stepping up to do that in such an amazing way in this book. You guys are you're getting more than the stories. You're getting master teachers here, who are helping you have really some palpable takeaways. And yours, Lynda, is no different from that. I think what might be something that you would want to say to somebody who just got that diagnosis. I know you're able to say some pretty awesome things, but what's the first thing that you would say?
One of the things that I say, and it's a quote that I have in the book, and that is, no matter the diagnosis, no matter the stage, no matter how long it's been or what you've done, there have been people clear on their commitment to health who have reversed that diagnosis. And you can too. Yeah,
again, super, super powerful. We end up losing hope, don't we? We end up getting told things by professionals. We end up having people, friends and family say things to us. How do you keep your mindset right?
And that's one of the biggest tools, Dr. Kelly Turner wrote a book called Radical Remission, and it's wonderful. And she talks about there's 10 different things that people did to reverse terminal illness, regain their health after terminal illness. I qualify to be in her book. I was clear before she published it. The thing that I think is most important is mindset. And only you have control of your mindset. Only you can control what goes on. Now, sometimes you have to play with that, or maybe all the times. I used to wake up dreaming of my own funeral. I would reach for a necklace or a pair of earrings and I would go, before I die, I'm going to give this. No, what? That was just the thought that was there. And when I first started really, really working on, getting my mindset corrected, it was work. I mean, the first time I ever tried to sit in gratitude for the experience of cancer. I mean, because truly I had this realization that gratitude is well known as being the strongest emotion and the most powerful emotion for change. And I knew that I had to get to a point where I could sit in gratitude and be thankful for this experience. And the first time I tried to do that was violent. I yelled, I screamed, I kicked, I spit, I cussed. It was ugly. And it took about 2 months to get to the point where I could legitimately be grateful for the experience, and then to move that to being genuinely grateful for the experience of having had cancer, that it was in my past and in my present body now, in my past. And that, I believe, was a big turning point. And then it was just a matter of getting the tests to validate it all.
Somebody was just turning me on to a movie. Have you guys seen Fierce Grace about Ram Dass? And he talks about this idea that, you know, every piece of your story is there, and it is the path, right? And so Lynda's talking about her gratitude for having cancer, just made me think of that. Okay, so I'm going to ask all of you this next question, but I'm going to stick with Lynda to answer it first. Why holistic when it comes to healing, right? What's important about that? I could go on and on about it, but I'm going to let you gals take it on. Lynda, what do you think?
That's interesting because I come from a conventional background. I was in conventional medicine for 15 years. And when I heard my name and cancer in the same sentence, I knew two things. I knew chemo would kill me. I could be wrong. I never did chemo. I don't know. Right. But deep in my being, I knew chemo would kill me. And I knew at some level that there was an imbalance in my body. And when I identified the imbalance, my body would heal itself. And then I went along looking for what was it that was out of balance. I believe that if I had had Mandy's EMDR, I would have healed much more quickly. EMDR is so powerful. If a woman is raped, there's a direct conflict of interest whether or not to do EMDR before the trial, because the sting is taken out of it and she might not be convincing to the jury.
Wow.
That's how powerful EMDR is. And if I'd have had that tool, oh, honey, I might have been able to kick this to the curb quicker.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to slide over to Mandy then, and let's go there. So why holistic, Mandy?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. EMDR really is amazing. Holistically, though, I mean, just kind of in alignment with what everyone's saying is that, I mean, your mind and body are telling you things all the time. You know, it's other stuff that gets in the way, like fear, anxiety, you know, just tunnel vision from past experiences, things like that. But when you can learn how to break away from the noise and begin listening to yourself again, I'm a big believer, especially in the identity work that I do, that it's having the courage to be who you are and not who you think you should be. So that's getting back to that sense of alignment with yourself again. And the mind-body connection is so profound. You know, they're both connected. And there's several techniques that I use from studies in the 70s that are all mental strategies, but they help people heal physically. And so much so that, you know, doctors would use these with their patients, and the ones who got the you know, mental wellness tips clinically or physically got better quicker. And so I mean, with EMDR too, like it's pure evidence of how your brain wants to heal itself. And just to give a super brief kind of gist of what EMDR is when a trauma occurs, it seems to get locked into the nervous system with its original picture, sounds, thoughts, feelings, and all of that. And then the eye movements that we use in EMDR, what it does is it unlocks the nervous system and allows your brain to actually process it so that those memories get filed away, just like all other memories, without all the emotional distress. And so you know, there's lots of powerful techniques that can bring physical healing and mental healing.
Thank you, Mandy. Laura, why holistic?
Yeah, I mean, love what Lynda and Mandy said. I mean, it's just so spot on. One thing I'll add is when I think of holistic, I often think of WHOL-istic, is like really looking at the full picture and our ability to sort of connect our energy with all that we are. Because I feel like so much of, especially in nutrition, a lot of the practice is just like fractioned, right? It's like, we're just going to focus on this one thing, or we're going to focus on this one set of behavior change. When we look at the whole picture, we can integrate in a much more powerful way. And then I think about how we integrate from an energetic perspective first, like Lynda was talking about, with gratitude, with emotional regulation, with, just understanding and tapping into the mind body connection, and then what we can create from that space.
And I think that we need to demand this of our practitioners more and more and more. So the subtitle of our book is 25 Home Practices and Tools for Peak Holistic Health and Wellness. You know, I put that holistic word in there on purpose. And a long time ago in my physical therapy career, I began to brand myself as a holistic physical therapist because I was tired of physicians sending patients with their prescription for ankle pain and the restrictions around us that limited us to a body part. Are you kidding? Right? So like, I need to look at the whole system, like Laura was saying. And if I wasn't looking at the mind, body, soul system in addition, holistically, I might miss something big that the person had been through that week that was affecting the things I was giving them to do, right? Karin, why holistic?
Yeah, so just like what Laura was saying a minute ago about the whole in a sense of connectedness, I think that, you know, being a holistic teacher, a guide is really about, you know, letting people know how interconnected they are with the elements of the earth, with the elements of, you know, the outer realms, astral realms, if you subscribe to that. But, you know, there's things that are here in the 3D in the earth realm, and there are things that are, you know, kind of above us that we can't really see, know, and, you know, in the physical world. But also with astrology, there are the zodiac signs and planets that are actually linked to the human body. So earlier when I was talking about Leo, it's ruled by the sun, that is connected to the heart and the solar plexus in the body. You know, Gemini and Mercury is like the hands and the arms. So a lot of the times when people do have ailments or certain things that come up in those parts of the body, myself, like an astrology reader, will look at their chart and see what's placed under that sign, what planets are there, to kind of give them kind of just like a general, you know, a suggestion for things they can do to calm down that part of their body. So there is, again, a lot of interconnectedness with, you know, the science of astrology, with spirituality, and then of course our physical bodies.
Yes, I love it. I love listening to all of the different ways. It's such a gift that we're giving in these books to put all of the possibilities. Karin's example is just making me smile because there are things you just may not know yet. And learning about all of these different things can be such a game changer. Okay, you guys, so I'm going to start with Mandy for this next question. And one way that we can talk about all of the chapters in the book is with the term self-care, right? So I feel like we're giving people a self-care toolkit that could really change the trajectory of their life. When we truly take care of ourselves in that holistic way, mind, body, soul, spirit, environment, all the things, we can serve them from the overflow instead of our reserves, which you guys know leads to the burnout. And I like to think of a full pitcher instead of a little cup. I like to fill my pitcher, right? So that I can share from that overflow, so that I can serve from the overflow. So Mandy, you first. Share with the listeners what's a way that you fill your pitcher.
Oh, goodness. There's lots of different ways. But I mean, I think when I can really get out in nature, and I mean, I tell people all the time, like, I do church out in nature. That's when I am just outside of myself, and the wheels aren't turning in a way that it is like obsessing and overthinking and all the things, and I can just breathe. And I'm very much an introvert. So having that alone time out in nature, running, listening to music, things like that, that's a way that I really, fill my pitcher, so to speak. And creativity. I know that when I've gone weeks or months without doing some art or something creative, I can feel the lack of energy in me. So that I have to like kind of push myself to do it. But then when I do it, it's like, oh, why have I stopped doing this? I'm so much more energized now. And so I know when I'm not being as creative, then it's time to fill the picture up with some creativity. So even like doing collaboration stuffs like this and different things that activate that part of my brain, that's, I forgot how much I've missed creativity until, really the last couple of years. That's a big one.
I love those. Lynda, what are some of your picture filling techniques?
I do lots of different things for picture filling techniques. I do meditation in the mornings. I enjoy yoga. I do different forms of self-care. I get a massage consistently. Pretty much my goal is at least once or twice a month. I go if you see the appointment on my calendar, anybody who sees the appointment on my calendar laughs, but I have an appointment on my calendar every day to walk with my sexy arm candy. That's my husband. He put the appointment there, but you know what? That's kind of the way our relationship is. It's yes, we're going to walk, but we're going to have fun while we do it. And it's a daily individual nurturing or self-care, but it's also a relationship self-care, because we don't take phones, we don't take anything. It's him and I for 1 hour, boom. And it's just a walk through the neighborhood. It's a walk together. And I will say that one of my biggest forms of self-care is precious, precious time that I spend with my husband. We'll go take just, come here, honey, and we'll snuggle on the couch for 15 minutes just to nurture one another and each other. And I think that's probably some of the most important self-care that we do.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And I know some of you are listening and you're like, oh yeah, that. And we forget, right? We need to put some of these things on our list. Karin, how about you? How do you fill your pitcher?
Well, this is kind of something that I'm starting to be a little bit more mindful about, because I oftentimes will wait until I feel like I'm like drained and then figure out what I need to do. So I'm trying to still get in have a regular practice, but I love fresh air, whether it's cold or warm outside. I like to just stand outside and get some fresh air to kind of lift my spirits a little bit and then like physically feel better. If I have a headache or anything like that. But then also helping people. So, I definitely think having a spirit of generosity can fill you up whenever, wherever, just kind of being of service to people, reaching out to anyone, especially over the past year, with people being kind of isolated. I think that being connected intentionally it really had a more powerful, hit for people, in terms of like someone actually taking the time to reach out and, again, keep that sense of community. So that definitely helps me fill my cup up, is just connecting with others, in any capacity. So.
I was just sitting here nodding about the fresh air. I love walks in the woods, and I get outside and do exercise and do that. But this past year, just spending so much more time in the house. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just have to remind myself, even for the 1 minute or 2 minutes, just open the door, open the window, step outside, get the fresh flow, right? So I was just sitting here doing this to your fresh air comment. How about you, Laura?
Yeah, so I love self-care. It's something that I've been incorporating. Actually started with the Miracle Morning, was like my entree into self-care. But what, I teach mind-body connection because I need it. Like I'm the one, like I spend so much time in my head. And if I'm not intentional about getting into my body, then I start to feel frazzled and I can just really feel the disconnect and it starts to feel very frantic. So I always say I have to clear my mind and connect with my body. And I clear my mind through journaling. It's the most powerful tool for me to just kind of brain dump and get the thoughts out. And then I do just different things that really help me get into my body, like dancing and singing. And I take voice lessons with a coach who really helps me connect to my body through my voice. And it's such a powerful way for me to keep that energetic connection and also to build really the muscles, like literal and figurative muscles, and to really just continue to build that strength of connection.
I love that one. I've done a little bit of voice stuff in the past as well. And it floored me, first of all, what an incredible personal kind of self-development tool that lesson was. Like, I just was curious and I wanted to try something new. And I didn't really have an idea of how much that would affect me.
Yeah. One of the coolest things she has me do is just to blow bubbles from a straw. So you're like humming, but blowing bubbles. And it really connects the physical and the breath and it also creates this vibration that just really moves. And it's just a beautiful thing. And yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. So ladies, I've got another really important question to ask all of you. And we talked a little bit about advice earlier and some of our ways of talking about that. But you know, the reality right now is there are a lot of people struggling. This past year, holy moly. And they're struggling to feel their joy right now for so many reasons. This year may have taken people just over the edge. We had whatever we had before this year, and we were all, you know, coping in whatever ways. But I think that this past year may have tipped people over a bit, challenging their ability to cope, you know? And so I want to know what words of advice you have, or another way to talk about this would be if you could offer a very easy entry point for people today onto that journey, you know, that would help them cope. What would it be? So Laura, I'm going to stick with you for this one.
Okay. I'd say for people who are struggling, I think one of the things that's just so important to know is that it's okay. Like, it really is okay if this year has been hard and just really put you in a different place from where you've been in the past. And I think that there is the finding places where you can be vulnerable and just build the awareness of where you're struggling, so that when we make moves, we are doing it from a place that's truly going to support us, kind of coming back to that understanding what habit's going to really help you heal. And so what I find is that a lot of people are struggling and kind of in secret. So even though we know it's collectively been a hard year and a lot of people are struggling, having a safe place to be vulnerable and to explore your struggle is, I think, one of the most powerful things you can do. So it can be with a professional, it can be with someone you know and love and trust, who you can turn to, who will be supportive. But finding maybe it's journaling, maybe it is being there and just expressing it to yourself, but saying, you know, it really is okay. And let me just take a look at let me just kind of see what's going on and start there, instead of trying to move right into healing or trying a bunch of different things that maybe will help. Just come into this place of, you know, what's my unique experience, not the social experience, not what everyone's saying on Facebook, and not, you know, but really understanding what is my experience, what's creating the challenge, and where's a safe place to explore it.
I love that. Thank you very much. Mandy, same question to you. How would you help people kind of slide in in an easy way?
Yeah, Laura, you know, we must be on the same wavelength here, because mine's very, very similar. I think it begins with coming up out of any shame that's going on, because secrecy and shame go hand in hand, and sometimes it's not even intentional, but we're comparing. Well, I don't have it as bad as that person, so I should just suck it up. Or we start doing this comparative suffering thing, or we're too embarrassed to say that, hey, I'm struggling financially. I'm struggling with the pandemic, how it's affected me in this way. I'm struggling with my relationship, or whatever it is. And so, one of my favorite quotes by Brene Brown, I'm a big fan of hers, is that the last thing that we need in the midst of struggle is to shame ourselves for being human. And just that ability to speak up, and then, like Laura was saying, like reach out to somebody. We actually heal in the context of relationships. Lynda, I loved what you were talking about earlier with your husband. And because we are literally wired for a connection. We can see it on a brain, imaging scan where we are actually wired for that. And so healthy relationships, or building those, or beginning to break out of, toxic ones, is really going to begin to help you. People with healthy relationships actually live like 15 years longer. And so, I mean, there's all sorts of research on the power of connection. And so I think, as a first, like, another favorite cheesy quote that I love, but an inch is a cinch, a yard's too hard. I usually just tell people, what does that inch look like? Is it putting both feet on the ground and not staying in bed all day? Is it calling a friend and saying, hey, you know how I say I'm okay, like, all the time? I'm not okay. And this is why, just whatever that little bit can be to get that momentum going.
I love it, Mandy. Thank you. I love being reminded that there's healing in relationship with other people. I know I grew up thinking I needed to do it all on my own for that to be the successful way to do it, right? And that really doesn't work too well, does it?
Well, if I can add one more thing, like we're especially all of us women, we're now growing up in this be a strong, independent woman, do everything on your own, type of thing. But if we are in our biology wired for connection, then we're wired for some level of dependency, that's okay to ask for help. Just to kind of back what you were saying with them.
Thank you. Lynda, how about you? Talk to our listeners about an easy way onto the path.
I think one of the easiest ways to really get onto self-care, into self-care, let yourself be okay with all of the struggles that are going on right now. The way I started is to sit for 5 minutes, and 5 minutes in meditation, and have that 5 minutes in meditation. All it is on the inhale, just think of something that you're thankful for or grateful for. And then on the exhale, actually feel the feeling of gratitude. It's not, oh, I'm grateful for. It's that feeling, when you see a baby chick, or a newborn baby, and you go, oh, whatever that feeling is, but you have to actually feel the feeling. And so it's very simple to stay focused. People say, oh, I don't know how to meditate. On the inhale, you think of something, and on the exhale, you actually feel the feeling of being grateful for that thing. I don't care if it's the morning sun coming in. What's that feel like? Can you feel the warmth of it on your face? I've got about an inch of snow on the ground last night, but I've got the sun coming in. And you know what? I'm like gravitated toward that little inch of sun coming in, and feel that feeling. And that, I think that everything that you've said, Laura and Mandy, is perfect to be okay. It's a rough year. It's a rough whatever. And there's something to be thankful for. Find that thing and be thankful for it, and it changes everything.
I love that. I'm not sure who said this, but fear and gratitude can't exist at the same time. So when you're moving yourself, leaning into gratitude, it's going to raise your vibration immediately. And that's why that particular tool is so powerful. And oh my gosh, after everything that's happened with, watching COVID and the people who have been ill, when I breathe in, I'm just grateful that I can take a deep breath. I can very easily feel the gratitude of being able to take the deep breath, right? Oh my goodness. Karin, how about you?
Well, definitely what everyone has said is, I concur 100%, but I would also maybe add a little bit about taking inventory, but doing so more on an energetic level. So finding out what flows freely to you and where are some like blockages or where there's feelings of stuckness. So one of the things that I really had to work hard on for myself was like behavior patterns, like, and reacting versus responding. Like, you know, again, kind of going back to the programming I mentioned earlier with the dysfunctional family systems, is like, I would just kind of react in a certain way because that's what I saw and that's what I was used to. And that's what I thought was, I guess, right. But it was really throwing me out of alignment. So I had to really like be mindful about, like, even if it's just like finances, right? Like, what am I spending money on? And am I spending money on things when I'm upset about something? Like, is that a coping mechanism? Like, is that creating blockages to more abundance coming in and things like that? So that might seem a little complicated, but I think it actually can be very easy if you just kind of like what people were saying, like center in, like go inward and see, like, how do you feel? Like, how does your body feel? Are you tense? Are you relaxed? Happy, sad, you know, and then you can kind of slowly make changes according to what comes up the most, or like more powerfully.
Yes. With awareness, we get the choice to respond instead of react. With awareness, y'all are listening to these amazing healer experts today drop some serious awareness on you. And I know you've had multiple nuggets. So grateful for all of you. Again, you authors, thank you so much for being here, for saying yes to this. I want the viewers to know that they should join us on March 3rd at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Brave Badass Healers Facebook page, because we are going to be having a live stream launch party with some pretty awesome giveaways. And 5% of the proceeds from all the paperbacks sold on launch day, you guys, March 3rd, are going to go to two of the nonprofits I love to support. Cedric Noafor is the founder of Roots Africa, and Miss Cayenne is the founder of the Inkwell. And I'm going to have some information down below in the show notes for you guys about those amazing organizations run by two of our incredible authors. And of course, if you're listening to this after March 3rd, well, that means you can hop over to Amazon right now and go grab your copy of this very powerful book. So, ladies, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here to share it with us.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So I have one last question for our viewers. What if there's something you haven't learned yet about healing that could change everything? It's time to be brave, you guys. Come on into the show notes, check out these amazing authors' websites. We've got you hooked up with all of that down below, and learn one of those magical somethings today. See you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love what you heard today. Don't forget to drop down and hit that subscribe button, you guys, and then join me over at bravehealer.com for just a little bit more healing badassery. Have a great one.